It's that timeless pursuit of when art merges with the artist, where we put ourselves out there, find that moment of motivation, and ride the momentum, and then love the very art we create. These are all deeply linked to the soul of who we are. Some say you might be able to measure that, but perhaps it is a blind pursuit. Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to 21 Grams. I am your host, Joe Compton. Nice to see you. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And I'm real excited because it's Friday the 13th. Well, Saturday the 14th for some of us who have to ruin it. But otherwise it is a good time to talk about some splatterings and some horror. And I don't think of two better gentlemen that I could have to do that with. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves? Todd, why don't you start and just tell everybody a little bit about yourselves and the movie that you guys created.
My name's Todd Braley. I am a actor, writer, producer, co-writer of our upcoming paranormal horror thriller known as Shadows of the Night. And I'm also the editor of it as well. So yeah, I've been making movies since I was about 8 years old. So been around a while.
Couple of years.
Just a couple.
Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please.
My name is Itai Guberman. I am the co-founder and basically the person behind My Indie Productions. Todd's company, Infinity Media Productions and My Indie Productions have been collaborating for a while on different little things. And this is our first big project together, Shadows of the Night, in which I'm co-writer and also a co-producer along with the awesome Deborah Lamb and Todd. So yeah.
This is really fascinating. The idea that two worlds colliding and coming together like this, and bringing one side of the world to the other side of the world, and creating something magical like Shadows of the Night. And I'm kind of curious, what was the initial conversation? Was it kind of, could we do this? Is this crazy? Or was it, you know what? When are we going to do this? How, when is this going to happen kind of idea?
Probably the latter.
Yeah. It was, the idea came from, Itai and I were on another podcast and we were talking, and I brought up something that happened to me when I was younger. Which was kind of a paranormal situation that happened at my house that I used to live at in Diamond Bar, California. And Itai said, "Oh, you should make a movie about that." And then I sat down and started thinking, how do I make a movie about that? And didn't take me long, to kind of to be able to bring something, that happened in the past and update it and make it relatable to today's audience. And that's when I started coming up with this idea. And to be honest, I'm having a hard time remembering kind of where we went from there. So Itai might want to fill in the blanks. I had a lot going on during that time. My brother had passed away, and so there was kind of a lot of different things going on, and So again, I'll let Itai fill in the blanks.
As I recall, I think we had that conversation on a podcast where I said, "Oh, you should make a movie about that." And you just thought, "Oh, is there enough of a story?" I said, "Well, we can invent the rest of the story." And we had a short conversation about it. And then Todd went and spoke with his wife Angie and his son Jaden, and they came up with a little more. And then Todd and I had a bit of a sit down and I think we mapped it all out in about half an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
And then got into the
coming
writing.
back to me.
And was it always going to be a concept of a feature? I mean, Todd. I mean, you're probably way past shorts at this point in your career, I would imagine. But I mean, every once in a while, you do tend to go back to that and kind of shoot just to shoot something, right? So, but you always had this in mind that this was going to be a feature project then.
Honestly, at first, it was just kind of something that I thought, do we have enough to drag it out for an hour and a half or 2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
And, after talking to Itai about it, and Deborah always likes to hit me in the back of the head and tell me, stop coming up with ideas for short films. And the short film thing, I think for me is just like you said, Joe, do it to be able to do something, because a short film you could do in a couple of days, and it doesn't take any money, and there's not, there's just, you can come up with your idea, call your buddies and say, hey man, in a month, I want to do this. And, but as far as this one went, it was, I think for the most part, and correct me if I'm wrong, Itai, I think, I mentioned short, and then we kind of went, nah, we got enough.
I think this was about maybe the third time in a row for you where you started out thinking short and ended up with a feature. So in this one, we kind of, cleared out those thoughts very quickly.
I would imagine you were going to fly halfway across the world for a short film, Itai.
It's not just that. I think that after having made quite a few shorts and worked on some shorts and worked on some features, with a short film, you don't really have a product at the end of it. You really have nowhere to go with it aside from, maybe festivals or something like that. But Todd and I have a similar view on festivals these days, that they're basically, not worth the time. It's all like, not all of them, but about 90% of them are pretty much almost a scam if you think about it. So we're not really going in that direction anymore. So there's really no point in making any more shorts. We should stick to features, and that's kind of what we talked about, doing with Shadows of the Night and beyond Shadows of the Night as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Todd has done smart things with shorts where he's packaged them and bundled them and put them in like anthologies and stuff like that. But I get what you're saying. And Todd and I've had the conversation about festivals before. So, then came the idea to crowdfund this, which I found fascinating too. Which was this your first foray into that, Todd, for the most part, for you?
No, it was number 4.
Okay.
I think at this point, I just really, I'm not a fan of crowdfunding.
Sure. Yeah. I'm
not. And I, and then you'll have some people out there who go, well, then why did I give you money? It's one of those things that it's kind of a double-edged sword, It's one of the easier ways, in a sense, to raise money. But I guess for me, I'm one of those people that grew up with the thought of investors and being being held accountable for the money that you have available to you. And now you got to work on making sure that, or trying to get your investors' money back. And I feel like you put more into it and you're not haphazardly making shit, whereas a lot of times you see a lot of guys out there that raise, $5, $10, $15,000, and you can do a lot with that money if you've got a lot of people that you're not going to have to fork out a lot of money for. But at the same time, you're also kind of free to make garbage, and we see that a lot.
I mean, technically, you have like you have 100,000 or 1,200 mini investors here, but
right. But you're not trying to make their money back. You're just you're giving them stuff for helping you out.
Yeah,
the perks, so you don't have to pay it back. And that's one place that Itai always has to he's the other guy he's the other one that slaps me in the head and go, yeah, but we don't have to pay that back. Well, yeah, I get it, but I don't know. And I would rather go to 4 people with $10,000 a piece and say, look, man, we've got this project. We're gonna make this. It's gonna be scary. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Give me the money, and then I've got 4 people I'm beholden to versus 184.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So I mean, that's just me. If I have to go and do more crowdfunding stuff, then I will.
It's a tough one. Well, I see crowdfunding as something a little bit different. I see it as pre-sales, because the perks we sell are a transaction. So I always say to Todd and to other people that use crowdfunding, I always say, don't use the word donation. It's not a donation. You're not getting money for nothing. You're giving them something, whether it's a credit, whether it's a DVD or a shirt or a poster or whatever else. So instead of selling it, later through some kind of an online store, you're selling it before the film is made and using that money to make the film. I think that's valid. Problem is, it's for people like Todd and myself, it's very, very difficult to raise as much as we need just from crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
We did 2 campaigns for this one and raised about somewhere around 20,000, a little over 20,000, and it's just not enough, and you try to find some sort of a mix of investors and crowdfunding. Sometimes that's not enough. It's a tough one being, an indie filmmaker. So to me, it's kind of, it depends on the project, because I think when you're making horror, it's a little bit easier to raise some money through crowdfunding. But if you're making something else, like, I don't know, a drama or a comedy, your chances are near zero if you're trying to raise a decent amount of money. So it's a tough one. It's a case-by-case kind of situation, I think.
How much of that do you rely on your instincts at that point then? Because I mean, you're invested in this, right? So then you say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to make this movie no matter what I have, what somebody's given me, and there's no, you get to a point where there's no turning back, right? And so then you have to rely.
Oh yeah.
So you have to rely on your savvy, and so I would say that being veterans of making films probably helps a lot in that regard for you guys.
We reached that point of no return at one point, and initially, look, we actually said we're going to need X amount to make this at a minimum.
Yeah.
And then we actually had some decent money on the table, and then that was pulled away. So we kind of went, much further than we thought, and then we went backwards, right back to where we started. And then we thought, okay, we just got to sort of knuckle down, raise a little bit more, and make it, for somewhere in the middle, well, not close to the middle, actually close to the minimum, but still make a decent film, because the quality of the film is what's important to both Todd and myself. We just don't want to make another film that is
Shit.
well, that gets forgiven, for a lot of things, because I mean, you do have to consider the budget.
And that's the other double-edged sort of horror, right? Is that there's a lot of forgiveness that goes on with it, oftentimes, because it is,
And I'm personally a lot less forgiving of these kinds of films, because I always think that you can make a film that the production value is not great, but if your story is good, you still have a good movie. So generally with indie, it's the other way around. The stories are shit, and sometimes the production value is decent, sometimes both are crap. So it's a tough one.
Yeah. But I mean, for you guys, you know what your limitations are and how you can achieve that. I'm curious though, what was different about this project for the both of you this time around? What did you try something new that you hadn't done before with this? Was there something that you guys worked on that you wanted to incorporate in this film solely for the purpose of trying something different, or were you really relying on what you know and how you know it?
We paid everybody.
I've done that.
First and
before.
Foremost. What's that?
I've done that before, though. For me, ever since I left, once I finished film school, I started paying everyone, even on shorts. And even if I didn't pay them a lot, I paid them something. So with this one, for me, I think the difference was that we actually had a couple of name actors. Deborah Lamb and Bill Oberst Jr., who were both fantastic. That is something I have not had before, because I made most of my films either here in Australia or back in Israel, where I'm originally from.
Yeah.
So I've never had the chance to work on a film in the US, and in Australia or in Israel, there was never a budget to fly somebody in. So so that was a little bit different. I mean, this is probably the highest budget that either of us have ever worked with, and it's still nowhere near what we need. So now we're, now the post-production process is a little bit slower than it could be, because again, we gotta, go slow and kind of fund as much as we can with what we have.
Yeah, the Grespats has made some good comments here, and I wanted to put these up here. I always love a good story, but I'm always most interested in seeing the process behind and the outcome of the creator's vision of being scared. Todd, you've always been really a defender of BTS, and you're one of the first people I can remember who has always championed BTS in that respect. Why do you think that's important for a filmmaker?
As far as the behind the scenes stuff, I think what that really has to come down to is, God, you know what? I'm kind of like brain locked on that. Can you, as far as making sure that we have the good crew, that everybody's respectful of each other. That doesn't always fall into line, unfortunately. Some people tend to forget about that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to share the behind the scenes stuff with people that may be following us and stuff like that. But as far as the cast and crew, I try really hard. And this movie was challenging on that part, to try and make sure that people are being taken care of, that the crew had the tools that they needed to be able to get the job done. That the cast had what they needed to get the job done. There was a lot of prep on this. I don't think I've ever prepped so fucking hard on a movie as I did on this one. I mean, there was a lot of work that went into this, and I don't think people even realize. And most of it, most of it, I did myself. And not that Itai didn't, but Itai was handling other things while I was taking care of props and costumes and that kind of situation. So I don't know. I don't feel like I answered your question. But...
Okay. Well, I'm curious how much crowdfunding plays a part in when you're thinking about behind the scenes. Do you feel like, because you are beholden to a bunch of fans, as Itai said, you have people who are paying for the experience to see this movie. Do you feel like behind the scenes footage and photos and things like that will benefit you as far as the again, hard to say donors without. I agree with Ty. I don't think they're donations. Contributors. Okay, yeah, that's good. That's a good word. Contributor. But do you feel like that you pay attention to that a little bit more carefully because of the contributors and the amount of contributors you have?
I don't know. I mean, as you know, Joe, I mean, I'm always trying to make sure that we have photos going out. I mean, you've been around me long enough to see that the amount of work that I put into letting people know about stuff without giving it away.
Yeah, that's a key too, right?
That's
let me show you how
hard.
Let me show you the magic of how we scared the fuck out of you, right?
Yeah. That was one of the things that we had to tell everybody, that we tell the cast and crew, take as many pictures as you want, but if it has anything to do with any of the scenes itself, where maybe you're standing behind the camera and taking a picture, nothing goes out without my approval.
Yeah.
And if I look at it and go, nope, that's giving too much away, then you're gonna have to wait until after the movie comes out to see, because there's probably there's probably a good 500-600 photos that haven't seen the light of day yet because of being we can't give away the plot. So
right. What are your thoughts on behind the scenes, Itai? Are you a fan of that? Do you feel like that's an important? You champion indies a lot on My Indie Production, so I'm curious what you think. If people come to you and ask you that question, do you feel like that's an important element for a young filmmaker to take a part in and embrace?
Well, it's hugely important because you have to have some material to put out there to keep promoting your film. Otherwise, people will forget about it. You have to give them something new. It can't be the same thing all the time.
You wouldn't believe, as somebody who does this a lot and promotes a lot of films, you wouldn't believe the amount of people who do not put that stuff out there. It's crazy.
Yeah. And people don't promote their stuff because they think it's shameless self-promotion. And I say, look, you have to either look at it as self-promotion and drop the shameless, or just take the shameless on board and go, yeah, so what, I don't have anyone else to promote me. I'm going to promote myself. Because you have to get your work out there. You have to get your name out there. You have to have people see what you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're doing it with, in order to gather more and more of an audience who can see your work. Otherwise, what's the point of making it? When it comes down to it, we're storytellers, but to tell a story, you have to have an audience. You have to have someone hear the story. In our case, see it. Yeah. And a lot of people, be it filmmakers or actors or otherwise, don't do that. they don't promote their work, which is kind of why I started the promotional side of my indie productions anyway, to help indies promote, because they just weren't doing it themselves. And I thought, well, that's a waste.
Yeah.
These days it's getting harder and harder because of time constraints. Excuse me. Now especially since I've started collaborating with Todd, we've got all these projects and all these scripts, and all of that requires my time. I just basically realized that I can't devote so much time to promoting other people when I have all this work to do, for my own projects.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance, right? It's a tightrope to walk. I mean, I'm in the same boat you are, and it's like, I do a lot of this. This is going now as a full-fledged network for the most part. I do all these shows and everything, and people, like Todd said, people don't realize how much work I put into all of this, and that takes a lot of time. And I still want to go out there and make my own movies and do my thing, So it's balancing it is one of those key elements of life, right? So, I'm wondering for you guys at this point in your careers and what you're doing, has the definition of how to scare someone changed for you? Do you, or is that the industry changing that perception?
You're going to get two very different answers here.
You go first.
Yeah, tell us.
Okay. I don't give a crap about scaring people. It's not even anywhere near the top of my list when working on a project. I have a story to tell. What's important to me is telling the story and telling it in the best way possible. I am not concerned with, best kills and jump scares or any kind of gimmicks or sort of manipulation. I would rather the story scare you or not at all. So I would either go towards like a thriller or a horror that will scare you as a concept, or I'll just make a comedy or a drama. I don't have to scare anyone. I think that thinking about scaring people from the word go, when you're thinking of an idea or of a project, is just the wrong approach, because you're not going to tell the best story you have. You're just going to find a way to scare people. And that's why people end up copying what other people have done all the time, because they think, oh, I have to scare people. What am I going to do? Let's see what scares me. I was scared by this slasher film. I'm going to make a slasher film, and then they basically steal the story. And they even copy the jump scares and the kills. And, and then, people are now trying to come up, well, basically one up each other with the kills. Yeah. I don't really care about that. And even gore, it's
terrifying. Terrifying.
Bless you. But yeah, for me, the most important thing is the script, the story. It's story first, always story first. Story is king. Scares are somewhere near the bottom of the list, and they have to come, naturally within the story. You can't just force scares in there, because it'll be as obvious as fuck.
Okay, let me before you answer, Todd, let me piggyback on that for a minute, Itai. I'm curious about the idea of, so when you're creating something, you're creating the story, you're focused on the story, but when you get to a point, what the story is going to be. It's going to be a horror. It's going to be a drama. It's going to be a comedy. Is that change anything for you perception wise at that point? Because you do shoot those things differently. We talked about that already. And you have certain budget lines that you need for certain things and certain ideas. So are you thinking about that at all during the production aspect of it then?
For me personally, no, because I work a little bit differently to most script writers. I don't write a script and let it develop as I write. I basically see the whole movie in my head before I write it. I know exactly what's going to happen at each stage of the film, and I know what's going to happen at the end. It doesn't, have its own life and happen.
Well, I understand that, but I'm more talking about defining the genre, right? So you know that right off the bat, or do you know that as the story progresses, how you're going to approach it? Because there is an approach
the
the drama
concept
versus
stage,
horror,
yeah.
right?
At the concept stage, for me, it's important to know that I have something that is at least in some way original and interesting. If I don't have that, I don't proceed.
Right.
Yeah, but the scaring part does not come into it. It only happens as we're shooting or as I'm working through the script. I go, oh, that's going to scare some people. But it's already there. It's not like I thought about scaring
No,
people and
I
wrote it that
understand.
way.
You're not
Yeah.
developing the scare. You're developing the story, which is
We don't have a
great.
list of scary things.
Right.
Yeah, and even in Shadows of the Night, while we were working, sometimes when we were working on the script, and sometimes when we were in production on the shoot, we just kind of looked at each other and went, "Oh shit, that's going to scare some people,"
Yep.
But it wasn't. We didn't think about it before and made it to scare. It
I
just kind of
understand
happens naturally. It's
My
an organic
question-
thing.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and that's great. That's the process, right? But
Hmm.
I'm curious though, has the way you look at scaring people changed for you? I mean, has it evolved for you at all from the first time you made a concept where there was scares to now where you're drawing this concept and making scares? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Kind of, but for me, there's no other answer other than I never really thought about it, and I never think about it as I'm working, because
you just
scaring
become a better
people,
writer and you just go with whatever comes out of your head, basically.
yeah, scaring people doesn't concern me. It's having an interesting story that is more important to me. It's maybe sometimes surprising people rather than scaring them. Maybe if you come up with some sort of a twist. Or the point of difference that you have in your film to others.
No,
But originality is more important to me than any of that.
And that was something we really tried hard on this one, was to be different, and I don't think a lot of people understood that, that we weren't just making, they think because we have priests and whatnot in it, that it's automatically an exorcism movie.
right.
It has that element, but it's not that kind of movie. We tried to think, we always, Itai and I, when we're talking about stuff, we're always trying to think, has this been done?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been done. How can we do it different? How can we make it look different? How can we make it sound different? Because we just don't want to be right there in line with everybody else, and
this is kind of where it's going. You draw inspiration from your life, from life you experience, and involves the perception. I totally that totally makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious from your perspective, Itai, though, this is a story that Todd told you that was personal to him that happened. Is that a different experience for you writing, taking somebody else's, personal story that I'm sure Todd had a little bit of investment in to start to create this? And was that a different experience for you writing wise?
Well, Todd's story, the real life story that kind of sparked this whole, idea to make this movie, is a very small part of the film, of the whole script, if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Todd was concerned with in the beginning, because he said, the story I have here, it's not enough, even, maybe for a short, but it's not enough for a full film. So we really developed a whole, massive story around it.
So it's just like any other process you have with a
yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's where the thought process of a short film came up.
Yeah.
That we went, okay, but no. Let's figure out how we can make this a longer, and make an idea that excuse me, that is different, and how can we do this differently? And I was more on the realms of, I want this to be as scary as it was to me when it happened, you know. So that's kind of where I was at, where I was thinking things had to be scary, you know. And you know, there were a couple times that I got excuse me, that I got a little bit, I went, oh, okay, there's that feeling again. That was weird.
That's kind of cool, though, that happened.
Yeah. Yes and no.
Everybody here, and probably most of the people in the chat, know how the sausage is made. So it's very difficult to get that feeling when you're making the sausage, right? Instead of you're eating it and you know, preparing.
Well, when we were shooting the scene that is based on Todd's real life experience, I remember Todd's excitement. You know, I could see it on him, because he was reliving what happened to him, and at the same time applying it to this new situation that we had there. And he wanted to make it so that it's not identical to how it happened, but that the feeling is there, you know?
Yeah.
You want to have that suspense and that build up and everything. And I remember that when we shot that day, I was actually more of a spectator than anything else, because I was watching that, you know?
Nice.
And my only question to Todd that day was, are you happy with what we shot? And he went, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you guys have talked about collaborating. You guys have worked on some stuff, you know, between the two of you. This is the first time that you guys got on set with each other, correct? This is the first time that you guys did a set together. Yep. So I'm curious, Ty, what did you glean from Todd that you're going to use in things that you do for in the future? And Todd, what did you glean from Itai that you're going to utilize for things you're doing?
Absolutely nothing. No.
Yeah. I think that about sums it up. Apparently, when you put two assholes together, they work well. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously going to work together again, right? You said you had other things planned, so obviously it worked.
Yeah.
There was some
the experience of working together was so horrible for both of us. We decided, let's keep torturing ourselves and do more.
Yeah.
No, Why?
Was there something interesting that you guys gleaned from collaborating that you hadn't had before?
It's a tough question. It was, but it was very organic though. Like,
sure.
Like in this one, Todd was directing, and on set I was script supervisor and probably more of a producer on set. So for me, what was most important was making sure that Todd was okay, that he was as calm as possible and not bothered by anyone, and you know, so he can concentrate. Because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to direct. You know, I'm also a director, so for me, having a very good producer on set or a very good assistant director on set who can keep all of that noise away from me so I can concentrate is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I was trying to achieve here. I mean, it wasn't always doable, and a lot of the time we had a lot of help with our first AD, an on-set producer, Jacob, awesome. So I don't know if we could have done it without Jacob, to tell you the truth. He was awesome. But Jacob and I were teaming up, trying to make that happen, trying to give Todd that space that he can be, you know, creative. And because this film, even though we wrote it together, as far as shooting it, I mean, it is Todd's vision. I always say to people, writers are important, directors are more important. On set, the director is the most important person because it's their vision that we're trying to achieve. A lot of writers think that, you know, they are everything. Without them, there is no film and all of that. And I just say, look, that's crap. Just do your job, you know, and be happy that you have one. Because, you know, I'm also a writer, but I don't let my ego get in there. But I wrote those lines. They have to be said exactly like that. Or, you know, this has to be to my vision. No, everything about it had to be to Todd's vision. And that's how it has to be.
Plus,
So
with indie film, things go wrong, things happen, things you can't do.
absolutely.
You thought you had the
Things
budget
went wrong.
for.
Look, that's one of the things, because when I direct a film, if the film ends up not working and getting a lot of criticism, that's all on me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, oh yeah, but my DOP didn't do his job, my producer
Yeah,
didn't do this, or my
that's
actors weren't good enough. I will never
The
say
buck,
that,
the
because
buck stops here, right?
absolutely,
well,
because it's
and
all on me. And
it,
yeah.
it's kind of funny. I was watching. I took a day today because normally I'm pretty busy on the run and stuff. And this morning I woke up and I just wasn't feeling creative. I wasn't feeling anything. So I just decided I was just going to do laundry and watch television. And that's what I did. But I was watching this afternoon, I started watching The Offer again, the making of
Mhm.
The Godfather. And one of the things that got brought up to the Paul Ruddy character, when he says, well, when you fail, there's no one else to blame. And he goes, that's just the way I like it. And so that's kind of, my thought process on that. It's, I am the final, if this thing doesn't work, I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, and I've seen it done a million times.
Yeah.
I've seen it done where people say, oh, well, that was, my cinematographer kind of screwed me, or this guy screwed me, or that. It's like, look, man, you're the top of the food chain, Buckwheat, and you need to accept responsibility for the fact that your movie sucks because of you. So, and I take full responsibility on that.
Nice.
I think that was something that was very different for me, because it's the first time that I've worked on a project that I was so invested in, but not directing, and I wasn't, the head honcho, so to speak. So strangely enough, it happened very, very organically and very naturally, because I think Todd and I developed this mutual trust before we finished the script, or before we started the script, probably.
Yeah.
So it was very easy to kind of, move into that.
Was there talk about where this was going at the beginning? Did you guys have that conversation about, well, this is the aim, this is what we want, where we want to take this, this is where it's going to end up? And did you guys
this film, or the collaboration?
Yeah, this particular film, because Todd has a very vast history with streaming, so do you, Itai, and so were you guys on the same page from the beginning on that aspect of it, that this is where, when we're done with this, this is where it's going to end up?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he told me, Itai just said to me, go write the script, and then, just throw things at me when you get stuff done. Excuse me. And so, I'm really good at writing a lot of dialogue, and Itai is really good at taking all this dialogue and bringing it down. I tend to say a lot in a lot of a lot of words, and Itai's really good at taking my whole bunch of words and making it 2 sentences. But he also, I learned every time we worked on the script, there was always something new that I learned via Itai. I mean, it was definitely one of those things. And then, when I would question what he's doing, he had a full-on explanation. It wasn't just like, because I said so. He just, well, he said that a couple of times, but no, he never said that. Yeah, he did. But but
I
it
thought
was
it.
just,
I didn't say it.
you thought it. But you know, it's kind of one of those things I really learned a lot from, you know, somebody else's thought process, because there are a handful of things that I've done that when it was done, I would say, well, you know, what do you think? He says, I wish you would have given me the script before you shot it. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, I won't ever not do that again, because I think a lot of people have a real problem. In fact, most filmmakers, almost all of you out there, have a problem with somebody critiquing your work, because you all think it's all perfect and everything is amazing and all that. And you don't want somebody to tell you that it's not. And I think everybody needs to pull their collective heads from their asses, and myself included now, that, you know, you don't know everything. And I think those of us as indie filmmakers need to learn that. And most of us have not learned that yet. You know, some people don't even know when there's a shitty script. You know, when somebody hands you a script, you look at it, you read it, or you half read it, and you're not reading into it. And when you get done, oh my God, this is amazing. But if you handed it over to somebody else, like Itai, and he looks at it, no, this script is shit, man. You know, and there's too many of them out there. And I think that we as indie filmmakers need to really learn to take criticism and not have such this inflated ego that you can't be told that when something is not good. And that's a huge problem. That's one of the hardest hardest things, I think, that the indie film industry is. I don't think we're ever going to be able to break from that, because I don't know where they get the egos from, first of all, because a lot of those guys, you know, and I'm not going to say I'm perfect, and and Itai and I aren't saying we're perfect, but we're thinking forward about what we're going to put out.
Yeah.
You know, we're not thinking, it's like you said, we're not thinking about the number of kills and all this shit. It's is the movie going to be good when we're done? When we're done, are we going to look?
Is there going to be an audience, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, are they going to look at it and go, "Wow, these guys put a lot of thought into that," or you know, and that's more or less what we really are aiming for, is making sure that the audience.
Is that the tough tightrope to walk with crowdfunding, you think? Because
super tough.
Sometimes you don't know what you have until you've put it together and sat down and looked at it, right? And I mean, you could polish the script till it's perfect, right, in your mind, and it's never going to be that, but it's going to be close enough to where you go, okay, now we've got to shoot this. We can't fuck with this anymore, right? But then you shoot it, and then, you know, things go wrong on the set. Things don't look the way you thought they would. Sometimes they don't look as good as they do on camera. You know, sometimes you don't have a usable take just because of technology or something happens, right? So all those things factor into when you're putting this thing together at the end, right? And so, you know, does that put a little bit more pressure on your shoulders, you think, because you crowdfunded this instead of, I mean, obviously having investors too, that you wanted to make their money back, but is that a pressure that you welcome, or do you feel like it's a little different this time around?
I'm fine with that pressure, because for me, the most important thing with any project that I'm this involved with is that the final product is something that I can be proud of, whatever my involvement is. And of course, you kind of have to compare it to other indie projects of similar budgets. And in that regard, I am not worried at all. And we did have the script, ready before we started crowdfunding, and we did talk about Todd's vision and how the film's going to look, and everything else. And I was never worried in that regard going into crowdfunding. I think we will deliver probably to people's expectations or beyond. I don't think a lot of people are going to be, terribly disappointed. I mean, there's always somebody who is disappointed and doesn't like stuff.
Yeah, there's always
but
an
for the
asshole.
but for the most part, I think we will, deliver and then some. Because again, like Dr. Todd was saying, we prepared a lot for this. The process was very, very sort of thought out,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we have a lot of talented people involved in this. So
Yeah.
I think we'll be okay.
Do you feel like this is the way you're going to approach films from here on out, Todd, or was this just so much fucking work that you're like, I don't know if I can do this again?
Yeah, I quit. No, I'll tell you what. I had to after we wrapped, though, because I mean, if you really think back to when this whole thing started, it's been like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And when I got done, it was just like this weight just like lifted, and I disappeared for a month. I mean, I made a handful of posts here and there, but for the most part, I just disappeared because I hadn't seen my wife in almost 3 months. I have a grandson now that luckily I got to see him a couple of times while we were shooting, because my daughter was helping with catering the last week that we were shooting. And so she would show up, and every so often, I'd get a quick hug from the grandbaby and a kiss, and then send them on their way. But it's, again, it comes back to what we were saying about how much work it is, and how much mentally it sucks from your existence, and not to make it sound bad to anybody out there, but you got to know that this is not a fucking cakewalk, man. This is not something. If you're fucking weak in any measure of your existence, you'll fail miserably. Or if you're one of those people want to learn, then you'll do exactly, you'll do what you got to do to get the movie done. I mean, I don't know if Itai wants me to talk about this or not, but with all of the money that we had, we still didn't have it all.
Yeah.
And and then when there was a point where we thought somebody was going to give us a specific amount that would have been able to fix everything, the day of, it went away. The day we were supposed to collect it, it went away. Welcome to indie filmmaking. Actually, welcome to filmmaking. Right, don't ever think that the fucking money is in the bank until it's in the bank.
So the check clears.
And so then, I had to figure out, okay, well, we still have this to pay for, and this to pay for, and this to pay for. So I started applying. I pulled a Kevin Smith and applied for, at the end of the day, it was like $20,000 worth of credit cards. And so, I'm on the hook for that now too. So,
all right, well, let's get people excited about this thing then. Let's talk. Itai, tell us what you tell us about this movie that will get the audience pumped to want to come and see it and check it out?
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Well, that was the thing when, as Todd was saying, the most stressful and most intense part of making a film is the production itself. Then you have all this pressure on your head, and it's just so difficult. And one of the advantages of having this collaboration is we got to share that pressure a little bit. But as soon as we were done, for Todd, it was like a weight, going away. And then but before I left the US, there was about a week, and I said, okay, Todd, we got to sit down, we got to do some kind of a promo trailer for this film before we kind of disappear for a little bit. And we did that in one day.
Yeah.
And that trailer is out there, and
it's on our Indiegogo page. Our Indiegogo is still rolling. So anybody out there that wants to contribute to it,
absolutely,
you can see that trailer on the Indiegogo. Just type in "Shadows of the Night" feature film, and it'll come up in the search.
I've got the link. I've got the link already in the description for everybody, so you can go right to the Indiegogo.
Awesome. You're amazing, Joe.
And the thing is, like, a lot of people are asking me, oh, when's the film coming out? Are you going to finish it by the end of this year? Is it going to be released, before 2025 or into 2025? And I say to them, look, we might have a rough cut sometime in early to mid 2025. We're looking at a mid 2025 release, hopefully. But I said, look, if you really want to help us get it done quickly, hit the crowdfunding campaign, because that's the only thing, at the moment. It's like you need to kind of make money so you can spend it on the things that we need, and that's what
what are a couple of the perks people can get if they do that?
There's a ton of them, from smaller ones to bigger ones, which are like, producer credits and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Obviously they can't get their face in the film anymore or anything like that, but people can get DVDs, Blu-rays, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's got what most campaigns have. And again, if people are quick enough, they might still be able to get some producer credits. If they get in.
It has what most campaigns have, but this movie's awesome. So that's what the difference is between most campaigns and this movie.
The difference between this movie and other movies is that this movie is made to be a quality film, and it's not made to look like or tell the same story as other films are telling. When people heard that it was about, there's this exorcism involved, which was a lot of the promo material that we put out early on was that exorcism. People thought, okay, it's influenced by The Exorcist. And we said, yeah, to some extent, but it's nothing like The Exorcist. It's not that story. It's a whole other story.
And I don't even really want to even classify it so much as a horror film as it is more of a paranormal thriller.
Nice.
I mean,
let's do that.
It's really, it's really, there's stuff that people are going to be able to relate to in it, that they're going to go, oh yeah, I've had that happen to me. Or yeah, God, somebody that happened to my cousin or whatever. And it scared the shit out of him. And it's like, okay, good. That's kind of what we're going for, but utilizing the dark web, and also taking a young person, Lillian Davis plays Jamie Campbell in the movie, and she, taking somebody, a teenager, being able to have, to not just have, a bunch of young people, young adults in the movie, that I thought, using a teenager, and having that, because so many teenagers are on the web. Yeah, there she is right there. That utilizing the internet was something that really isn't done a lot. It's done in a handful of ways and places, but it hasn't been really utilized the way we did it. So
I'm a
Go
font
ahead.
nerd. I'm a font nerd, and the font on the shadows, I love that. Sorry.
Well, thank Gaz Jackson for that. Gaz did those. Gaz Jackson from the UK did
Nice.
those posters for us. So
They're really good. They're really
big
amazing.
shout out to him. It was kind of one of those things that we got the poster and Itai looked at it and he was like, "Ooh, I like that."
Nice. Okay, so I'm sorry, Itai, go ahead.
I was going to say the funny thing about the story is, and you know, Todd is saying to him it's not so much a horror film; it's more of a supernatural thriller, paranormal thriller. I see it as a paranormal supernatural horror, because to me, it's you know, it's got that basic story of good versus evil. And it's not like, even though the exorcism and the dark web are kind of tools that we use in the movie to get us to where we need to get to, it's not really about either of those. You know, it's about characters that we fleshed out, you know, that we developed a relationship between them and everything. And yeah, I think,
and then messed them up.
yeah, some
Completely.
of them,
some of them.
Yeah, and yeah, and that's my way of thinking, is that people will enjoy the story that unfolds, where it goes. And also, I think it was always in the back of our minds to kind of create this kind of universe that we leave ourselves an option to one day either, you know, make more films, not necessarily sequels, but films within that universe.
Sure, I love that.
Well,
I would be. Go ahead, Todd.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's definitely it's. Oh, I lost my thought. Never mind. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I was going to say I'd be remiss not having you on and not talking about Jack Russell a little bit. Your friend who just recently passed away.
Yeah.
And how involved you were with Great White early on in their career, you know, and
that happened during the shoot.
Yeah.
His Jack passed away while we were shooting. And
can you give us a little story about him? Tell us a little bit.
You know, I helped. It's kind of there's two versions of Great White. At least there were two versions. I've been lucky enough to work with both versions of Great White. The version where the guitar player Mark Kendall runs the show, and the other one where Jack Russell ran his show. And it was kind of one of those things that you know, I was lucky enough via a good friend of mine, Paul McPhee, who's an artist. He actually did some painting, a painting for one of the earlier Great White albums that actually got nominated for a Grammy for the artwork. And anyway, Paul hooked me up with Great White, the Mark Kendall version, first off, right out of the gate. And then I got to make a music video for them. And then I worked on all of the album cover art for their full Circle album. And it's pretty cool to see your name on the back of an album cover that's you know, artwork by Paul McPhee and Todd Braley, you know. So, and then after we did that, apparently Jack liked, you know, Jack and Paul have been friends since the 80s.
Yeah.
And excuse me, Paul got a hold of me and said, "Hey man, Jack liked the work that we did on Kendall's album. He's doing an acoustic of some of their big hits." He says, "You want to help me do the album cover on that?" Well, who's going to turn that down?
You're right.
And so we worked on that. But then I also Jack Russell's Great White was performing in this town of Rifle, and I got invited to go over there and shoot some video of the concert, and got to meet Jack, and he was a good guy, you know, for all of his issues that he's had in his past. He was super nice, super gracious. When you're going to take a picture of him, he just absolutely loves his fans. And that was obvious to when there was a meet and greet after the concert and people were back there taking pictures with him, that he just wrapped his arm around you, man, and almost got you in a fucking headlock to get those pictures and smiling. So, he was a good guy. He was a really good guy. I've been lucky enough 2 times now that I can sit there and say, how many people can say they're a part of rock history?
Right.
And so being able to work with Mark Kendall and all of his guys, and then being able to work with Jack, it would have been cool if they would have been together, but that was just something that was probably never going to happen, and obviously now won't ever happen. But it was it was fun, and Jack was really gracious about the album cover, and it was so cool because then there were people that were wearing T-shirts
with your album cover
at the concert with my artwork on their shirt. And so that was
awesome.
That was cool as well, so yeah,
the little things, right?
Yeah, and that was just awesome. That was just kind of one of those things that I still have all of that video that I shot at that concert. And Jack said he was sick. He apologized. He goes, man, he says, I'm sorry, I didn't sound very good. I'm sitting there going, where did you not sound good? You did Save Your Love, and you hit every fucking high note. Where were you bad? I'm just trying to figure that out. So,
awesome.
Excuse me. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to sit down with you guys. Thank you for being here and talking about your film and the process and everything like that. And it's always fascinating to me. I love doing that. And when it comes out, we'll spotlight it even more and get you guys back here and talk about it when we can kind of reveal a little bit more for people and talk a little bit more about it. So
yeah, we wish. I'm working on a new trailer.
Nice.
It's hard when you don't want to tell everything.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those things. When I saw the 28 Years Later trailer the other day, that I looked and I went, see, they didn't give anything away. And I'm thinking, okay, so now what can I do on our new trailer to not give anything away? So I'm kind of beating my head trying to make sure that I get that trailer together and don't give anything away.
Nice.
So
all right.
So hopefully a new trailer, and and then we're at the moment looking at 2 other projects potentially for 2025, which
Nice.
we're working on the script. So if anyone out there is looking to get in on the ground floor, we are looking for producers, investors, all of that. Because we're probably not going to go the crowdfunding route with this one, with these 2 actually. We're not sure yet, but we're always looking for people to come in early and get us started. So
there you go.
If anyone's interested, just hit us up.
Be part of the movie magic and history.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you for for all the great comments and all the wonderful things. Like, subscribe. Do all the things you do. Remember that it's always time to go indie now, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.